Perfect. All right. So I will now let Deacon Coleman go ahead and enlighten us. Deacon, so glad that you're here, and I thank you for being willing to do this.
Well, good morning. Magnifica Humanitas, magnificent humanity. What a beautiful thought. The Catholic Church has had over 267 popes who collectively have now written 300 encyclicals, basically a letter to the entire church that contains the Pope's views on church teachings and doctrine in a particular area of social concern. So, what does this 240-page encyclical have to say? Well, it's 5 chapters covering lots of important doctrinal issues as well as social concerns that everyone should take the time to read. But at the center, obviously, is certainly AI, artificial intelligence, and an overwhelming concern for its use, something Leo refers to as false realism. So we all have to ask ourselves, what will be the true agenda of AI? Will it be for the overall benefit of society as a whole? Or it will be for power, for money, mass surveillance, collecting data? Could it lead to a new form of slavery? And the answer to these questions, only time will tell. And that's exactly why Pope Leo is on it. All I can say is, wow, this is such a well thought out encyclical. But that shouldn't surprise us. You see, it comes from a man who graduated from Villanova with a degree in mathematics, a man who desired to become a priest 44 years ago with a humble goal to serve humanity, a man who spent over 20 years of his adult life in the poorest sections of Peru, caring for its people, giving them not only faith, but hope. It comes from a man who has always been dedicated to his fellow human beings. So shame on any critics who thinks that this pope is not fully informed to write about this topic. The main point that Leo makes is all humanity itself is being transformed by AI. AI is about great human achievement, inventions, software, platforms, machines collecting and analyzing data in order to refine, optimize function, production, and abilities. But technology, as we already know, can be used for either good or evil. These are instruments or tools that are not necessarily neutral because they take on the characteristics of what they were designed for and how the designer can then utilize the data collected. And these are things that we can't predict the outcome from, nor the long-term results of such changes. So there's a great need for discernment, government involvement in their development and implementation, more so than just letting the actual designers control them because of the concern we must have for the people who will be affected by use of this AI. Our first American Pope actually presented this very progressive text along with the most logical people to answer these questions. AI's leading platform designers and builders. Anthropic co founder Christopher Olah was at Leo's side, both having dialogue before and in the presentation itself. The Vatican brilliantly and explicitly solicited the this document. And it's a huge step in ensuring that we seek accountable and well purposed improvements in monitoring and watching the AI growth cycle. In short, this is an affirmative vision for how humans should approach the AI future. Throughout this text, it is obvious that Pope Leo XIV was deeply inspired by Pope Leo XIII, whose 1891 encyclical, Rerum Novarum, of revolutionary change, addressed concerns of the Industrial Revolution, socialism, and Marxism, and has since laid out for many years much of our church teachings on economic issues as well as church state relations. It is widely seen as the foundational document of modern Catholic social teaching. So it's no coincidence that Magnifica Humanitas was introduced on May 26th, because that's the 135th anniversary of Rerum Novarum. The whole world is paying attention to AI and should be. Donald Trump issued an executive order back in 2025 and again in 26 because he knows it's important that the self proclaimed good guys win the race for AI. His purpose? That the United States leadership in artificial intelligence will promote the United States national and economic security and dominance across many domains. There's that. Pope Leo is very concerned with dominance. Now, this is ever. The United States needs to be just that, united. It really doesn't matter whether it's your or my political party or goal or not, but look at world politics. The goal is obviously dominance. So if China or Russia wins the AI race, do they have the human morale? I believe we need to try to win the race because it was the same goal of the forefathers of this country, that there be good life and liberty for all. That's not happening in many other parts of the world. That's why the United States is updating existing federal regulatory frameworks to promote adoption of AI application across sectors. These efforts have already delivered tremendous benefits to the American people and led to trillions of dollars of investments across the country. This is why this beautiful encyclical asks, what is in the hearts of men? In chapter 1, Leo spells out that in a dynamic approach faithful to the gospel, that the church has a role to interact with the contemporary world, a church that walks alongside of humanity, that helps influence government and technological outcomes, but does so without interfering with either. Magnifica Humanitas does not shy away from spelling out the harms of AI, such as developing war weapons, destroying the natural environment, disrupting early childhood development, dehumanizing effects manifested along the supply chain as corporate America and the world focus on use of new and not always wonderful technology. So is this really something new? No. It's been going on since the dawn of humanity. God gave us an amazing body with an amazing brain in it. As Christians, we know that God also gave us a free will moral conscience wherein we can do the right thing or we can go to the dark side. Again, it's what's in the hearts of men. And history shows that we can go either way, but as good Catholics, we have great faith in what our God has in store for us. Chapter 2 covers foundations and principles of the social doctrines of the church, the dignity of the human person, value of human rights, the common good, subsidiarity and social justice and continuity with what needs to be happening. Throughout the text, Leo insists on the value of fulfilling human work that doesn't just lead to productivity gains or capital gains, but improvements that also provide context for expression, relationships, and contributing to the community. He agrees that tech should help us to relieve humans of arduous, repetitive, or dangerous tasks and provide intelligent support, but also warns of growing AI induced inequality, which can exacerbate poverty and even force migration. He urges that such tools be created with the well being of workers in mind first. The principle here is that AI should be more of an addition rather than replacement. There can and must be responsible development in all of AI. Leo uses the story of the building of the Tower of Babel as opposed to Nehemiah and the rebuilding of the walls of Jerusalem. The designer builders of the Tower of Babel, as we know, were not God centric, but rather out to make a name for themselves. They were more self serving and profiting from their own efforts. Nehemiah, on the other hand, engaged in distributed tasks and called for solidarity and co responsibility in rebuilding Jerusalem, a coexistence between church and society, wherein we build and pray that God be with us in all that we do. Chapter 3 deals with technology and dominance. The culture of power and dominance in the world today is historically documented throughout time. From the book of Genesis, mankind has long normalized war and killing as the means and order for sustaining one's culture, a destructive and costly approach that the world can no longer tolerate, nor afford, nor succeed at. Leo mentions the establishment of the UN at the end of World War II as a safeguard to prevent the return of World War. The UN has not been united, nor has it been too successful in trying to get everyone to agree on no more war. And even worse, here we are, the United States at war with Iran, Russia at war with the Ukraine, such that peace is now defined as that space in between conflicts. Chapter 4 is the bottom line. The truth should be our highest value. We need transparency. We must be sure we know that AI is responsible and accountable for what it produces. Remember the advent of nuclear fission, the future of energy production, and then its transition to the Manhattan Project. What if Germany or Japan had developed the nuclear bomb first? It would certainly be a very different world. And again, it's not the technology that is bad, rather the use and effect that it has on society. We actually live in South Carolina where over 54% of our electricity comes from nuclear power. Technology can be and is wonderful when it's used properly. Chapter 5 is about the culture of power and a civilization of love. It's a very profound question. Is it bad when we weaponize our technology? Or is it rather a means to thwart war, to let us survive? Most of the United States Armed Forces, as well as all the other world powers, already utilize extensive AI. And it will continue to be a deterrent until the next biggest and baddest tech platform is weaponized. The U.S. naval ships in the Gulf of Hormuz already use completely autonomous weapons right now. These are guns that think for themselves. They fire at will with no human intervention and no conscience. It's a scary little picture of how machines are dehumanizing war, replacing the human element and the concern that we should have for exactly that. So Pope Leo has a lot to say in Magnifica Humanitas, and you should all take time to read it. But if you don't have time, you can quickly Google it and get a complete AI overview. But just be sure that you notice at the end of every AI summary, there is a caveat, a warning that AI can still make mistakes. So don't be afraid of AI entirely. Keep using your brain. I don't think God will ever let AI take over humanity and all that He created. If we keep God in the equation, search our hearts, and move forward inclusively, there is awesome potential in AI. And remember this, humanity was created by God, not by AI. And if being human was good enough for Jesus, then it's good enough for us. The Lord be with you. May God bless you and keep you for Himself and bring you to everlasting life. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. And De Coloris.
Wow, 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 Deacon. That was pretty fabulous. Okay, I'm going to open it up for questions and comments. I think, there was a lot of great information there. I was madly taking notes, and I'm a terrible note taker. But I think some of the things that stood out for me is when the point was made about the church should be walking alongside humanity, and the emphasis obviously on humanity and how this is used to affect humans. I also like when you talked about, not to necessarily be afraid of AI, but we're looking for AI to enhance the well-being of workers rather than replace. And it really depends on the individual's intentions who is creating the AI, and how that those individuals tend to use it. But so much good information, and I really do appreciate it. I'm going to open it up now for discussion. Now, because there are so many people here, I don't have every single person on my screen. So if somebody is waving and wanting to speak up and I don't see you, and I see Mike Solly, if you have your hand up for a while and I miss you, then just unmute and go ahead and speak. But I see Mike Solly first and then Denny Mahoney next. Mike, go ahead. And don't forget to unmute because I did mute you during the talk.
You're muted, Mike. You're still muted.
I'm going to ask you to, oh, there you go. You found it.
There you go.
What a wonderful presentation. I've spent a lot of time on this, and your insights are just wonderful. One thing that I thought was interesting to add is that the church is one of the first major institutions to respond to AI, and they have set up an interdicastery commission on AI that includes the head of the one organization, one of the company that you mentioned is on the commission.
Yeah, the Vatican did an excellent job, of rather just doing their own research. He immediately brought in everybody involved in the industry, and I'm just blown away by our amazing Pope. We've got a good Pope.
Hear, hear.
Most of the good things that in some of the things that you guys are quoting from this talk were direct excerpts from the encyclical itself. Is not no brilliance on my part. It's all this is a good Pope. He's sharp.
Hey, Denny.
Yeah, so I thought that was very good presentation. Am I frozen?
You're choppy, but we can hear you. You might want to try turning your camera off, and it might be clear. Now you're frozen.
He's out on the beach.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Denny, I'll let you see if you can get back on while we're waiting. Did somebody else have their hand up? I see Tommy, you're unmuted. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, if I could. The overwhelming thought I had, Deacon, and I was trying to weed through 240 pages that you've condensed into 15 minutes. But an overwhelming thought I had was, unless we're value-centered with the right values, technology of any sort, I mean, use the iPhone as an example.
Sorry.
So what I'm drawing our attention to is this thing about AI is scary if we don't have the right values. And we'll be okay if we have the right values. And the right values are centered on Jesus Christ. And that's somewhere along the line, Pope Leo said something to that effect. You wrote it. And it's like, we have to be centered on God. We get away from God, this thing will be a nightmare for us. You mentioned it just in terms of weapons. If we're focused on God, so our job, we can't do anything about, I can. What I can do is be a leader in my 1 square meter. That is Curcio. We can take Jesus Christ into our arenas. That's our job, regardless of AI or not. But it fits into the solution of making sure any technology is going to be taken into the right thing. So that was my overwhelming thought. 240 pages. I wish that they would kind of do it triple spaced and 3 pages, and I'm good with that. So thank you, Deacon. Thank you so much for your time in putting that together.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
It's interesting. His greatest mentor was Pope Leo the 13th. Pope Leo the 13th wrote 88 encyclicals. How about that? That's mind-boggling.
Okay, I think Denny signed off and he'll come back on and we'll try him again when he rejoins. But Eileen, I see your hand.
Yeah, thanks, Deacon Coleman. I just, as the mom of, oh, just knocks him over. The mom of five boys, the statement that really hit me is that in what we see all over the news, machines are dehumanizing war. And that to me, it's so scary to me that we have drones and this AI and we can do so much damage without
No
anybody.
face.
No,
Yeah.
no face, nobody to get mad at. It's just,
Yeah.
so feeling that this stuff is imposed on us and we don't have any say. The powerlessness in this AI thing really, I realize, is what gets me. So I feel like, so because it's coming kind of getting imposed on us, I feel like with thank you for tackling this because I feel like I'm going to go in and tackle this and I'm going to make sure like from the grassroots, I feel like what can we do, so
Yeah.
just understanding this, getting the narrative out, talking to people about it, just so, it's not just imposed on, it's coming from the ground up, so if we don't like what's happening, we have to understand and we have to, not buy into it. And so we can't be powerless. We have to pray and make sure that we understand it and be part of the narrative, talk to people in our little square area as Tommy said, but we really can't just wait and be paralyzed with this. We really have to get in the narrative, start
Yeah.
talking to
Yeah.
people, make sure people have these ideas that the Pope has brought up and just keep them out in the narrative. So I feel I went from kind of being paralyzed and afraid to thinking, no, we are going to be way ahead of this like the Pope has done and start setting the narrative in our little area. And hopefully if everybody does that, there's a lot of square feet there that we can set the narrative to. So thank you so much for tackling that.
Amen,
Well,
Eileen. Thank you.
okay.
Denny, go ahead and give it another try.
Yeah, sorry about that. Things just froze up here. I thought, Deacon, you did a wonderful job. One of the things that that I found particularly good is that second chapter about Catholic social teaching, because he goes through each of the relevant encyclicals from Rerum Novarum all the way up to Fratelli Tutti and all those, and pulls out the key takeaways. And I found it amazing. And so I found that a couple of things that people might be interested. Word on Fire has put out a book, not surprising, on Magnifica Humanitas, and Bishop Barron's got a foreword in there. The other thing that I wound up looking up was if you can go to the Vatican website, or you can actually get a book, a compendium of the social teachings of the Catholic Church that go through all of the stuff that he lays out. I mean, he's just summarizes some of the key points in trying to lead to what should we be focused on. And it's all about love your neighbor as yourself. The thing that I'm concerned about is that while the church has done a wonderful job and great that he put this thing out, whether it's going to fall on deaf ears for all of the developers around the world, because they're more focused on end results as opposed to moral, spiritual, physical needs of all of us. I mean, he talks about people being thought of as almost like machines. If you're not effective, you're not useful. And the tendency, I think, for a lot of what's going on in the world and what may go on in AI is doing things more efficiently, more effectively, quicker. And that's the big concern about people being just tossed to the tossed aside and not considered. I don't know how much moral concern, social concern the developers have when it's a race to the top. And as Eileen said, we need to do whatever we can in our, square meter and advocate for uh, social awareness in what goes on with AI.
Hey, Dennis, that was a very good point, and I will tell you this, that if you're not aware, Anthropic, who was Main Street with the Pope in this presentation, actually just a couple of weeks ago pulled the presentation of their new software platform, which was designed to find vulnerability in other people's platforms. It was really scary. In other words, if you know what a hacker does, I mean, a hacker can, they're awful, miserable, dirty, rotten people that are trying to get into your private businesses. And Anthropic comes out with a program that they're going to make available to all these people. And by the grace of God, and I would think by the influence of Pope Leo, they pulled the introduction and release of this with more concern before it gets implemented. So yes, Pope Leo was spot on. I think there's a lot of people focusing on it. And it's just like we were talking about atomic bombs. Think about it. How many of these world countries have threatened atomic nuclear war? But everyone knows when they put their finger on that trigger, it's the end of everything. And so that in itself becomes a deterrent. And we hope that God will stay consistent in the hearts of men. And I was telling my children, I said, as long as there's more good people than there are bad people, God's going to prevail. And that,
Yeah,
amen.
I would certainly pray for that. Anthropic is just one company, though.
Yeah.
You got OpenAI, you've got Amazon Web Services, you've got a gazillion people. I read a thing yesterday about a company that has been able to speed up the process, and so that you won't need quite as much computing power to do it. I started looking at what's all involved with AI, with transformers, with dense attention, with encoders, decoders, and all of that stuff. It's going to be a race to the top. Anthropic may be doing good things, but what's everybody else going to do? What's China doing? And
Right.
we
Yeah.
really need to pray.
We do. And the goal is money and domination, which is
Yep.
just sounds like a bad cartoon,
So we have enough time for maybe one more question or comment. Would anybody else like to comment or ask a question?
I would like to.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm sorry you can't see my picture. I just wanted to chime in from the perspective of grandparent, parent, and more and overriding all of that being a cursista. And our charism of friendship is even more vitally important when you look at the statistics regarding the alienation of our young people from each other, that that we have a whole generation that does not know how to connect with each other, that they have become increasingly isolated, and that's where the AI that's already in place, that's already been um, perpetuated throughout all of our technology, seems to continue to point people into greater and greater isolation. And when you link that back to the first lie, the first sin, that is where that is the energy, that is the focus, that is the when you asked about what is in the hearts of men, what is the purpose and the effect going to be of this further enhancing of isolation and alienation, that it's from a Curcio perspective, it's even more important that we continue to focus on personal relationships and make that be our raison d'etre, as far as not just using AI successfully, but actually being able to focus our energies on in-person relationships. And wherever we see people who are in isolation, that we can help build those bridges, those individual bridges that we need to build in our whole friendship charism, so that we can be a counterbalance to isolation and alienation. Thank you.
Excellent points, Deborah. Thank you. Thank you so much. I especially how you made that connection to the first sin. Deacon Coleman, anything to wrap up?
No, just, commenting on what she just had to say. I mean, I think we all agree, especially in Curcio, that together is better. I mean, we all have our great charisms and different talents, but together, when we combine them, especially with God, it's a wonderful majority. So,
Amen.
amen.